From the moment someone first tastes the pull of a substance, whether it is alcohol, narcotics, or any form of chemical escape, a dangerous illusion begins to take root. The illusion is that these substances offer life, joy, or freedom. For many, that illusion hardens into chains so heavy that the world begins to tell them, once you fall into this, you will never truly be free. That narrative is repeated endlessly, and it begins to sound like truth. That even if you have lived without a drink or a hit for 10 years, or 15, or 20, one wrong step could send you plunging back into the pit, deeper than before. Entire communities, systems, and movements have repeated this message for generations. They tell you that your struggle will last until your final breath, that there is no real liberation, only endless management of a permanent condition. But the human spirit knows better. There exists a state beyond addiction, a state so elevated that no chemical high can match it. To discover that state is to realize that substances were never the answer, only a distorted reflection of a much greater possibility already inside you. When that truth is embraced, the chains can break, not temporarily, not conditionally, but completely. And once they break, they cannot hold you again. This is not easy to believe when someone is caught in the cycle. The cycle is brutal. It begins with a spark of relief, a brief burst of pleasure or escape, and then it twists into guilt, shame, regret, fear, and emptiness. Those feelings drag the person back toward the same substance, searching again for comfort. The spiral deepens, and with it, health deteriorates, relationships fracture, and hope seems to vanish. From the outside, friends, families, and societies look at the addict and see weakness. They see poor decisions, lack of control, or absence of willpower. But that is a shallow interpretation. Addiction is not about weakness. Addiction is about being human. At its core, the human being has needs that run deeper than food, water, or shelter. There is the need for joy, for relief from pain, for a sense of worth, for honesty with oneself, for connection with others, and for meaning. When life fails to provide those needs in healthy ways, substances step in as substitutes. They are crude, destructive substitutes, but they temporarily fill the void. That is why threats rarely work. That is why pressure and persuasion rarely work. Someone may be told they are destroying themselves, that they are killing their body, that they are breaking the hearts of the people who love them. And they may know all of that is true. But the moment the craving rises, the craving silences those warnings. Because the craving is not for the substance itself. The craving is for the relief the substance promises. History itself proves this. Whole nations have tried to erase alcohol or drugs from existence by force. Laws have been passed, prohibitions enforced, punishments threatened. Yet wherever alcohol was banned, underground markets flourished. Whenever narcotics were criminalized, new substitutes appeared. People brewed drinks in basements, distilled poisons in makeshift labs, and consumed even more dangerous concoctions simply to satisfy the need. From empires to republics, prohibitions have risen and fallen, but addiction has remained. This is not because people are evil or lawless. It is because prohibition attacks the surface, not the root. It tries to erase the symptom, while the wound underneath remains untreated. The truth is that alcohol and drugs are not the core problem. They are the bandages, the crutches, the makeshift medicine people reach for when the inner pain becomes unbearable. They are coping mechanisms, poor and destructive ones, but coping mechanisms nonetheless. To truly understand addiction, one must look beyond the bottle or the needle and examine the wound it tries to cover. One wound is biological. Substances trigger dopamine, serotonin, and other chemicals in the brain that signal reward and pleasure. For a moment, life feels lighter. The colors seem brighter. The weight of existence lifts. But the brain learns quickly. It begins to demand more, to chase the same high again and again. Each time the effect diminishes and the cost grows. Soon the body becomes trapped in a rhythm. Relief, crash, shame, craving, relief again. It is a physiological prison. Another wound is psychological. Traumas from childhood, the weight of unprocessed emotions, the constant pressure of existence, fear of failure, shame, loneliness, or a fragile sense of self-worth. All of these drive people toward escape. When the glass is raised or the pill swallowed, those insecurities are silenced for a while. The shy become bold. The timid become fearless. The self-critical become confident. But it is a borrowed mask, and when it slips, the pain underneath is even sharper. Another wound is social. Human beings long for connection, for shared experiences, for laughter and belonging. In many cultures, substances became social glue, rituals of bonding. A toast at the table, a drink with friends, a celebration fueled by intoxication. Entire traditions have built alcohol and drugs into their identity. Refusing to participate can feel like refusing to belong. And so people continue, even when they know the cost, because to stop is to risk isolation, rejection, or misunderstanding. And then there is the existential wound, the most dangerous of all. It is the wound of meaninglessness. When someone asks silently, "Why am I here? What is my purpose? What does it matter?" And the answer does not come, substances step in with their own answer. They say, "Don't worry about the question, just feel good now." And for a moment, the emptiness recedes. But when the effect fades, the emptiness returns, heavier than before. This is why some of the brightest, most talented, and most creative souls in history have fallen into addiction. Their longing for purpose was so strong that, when no answer appeared, they sought relief in the only place they could find it. The destruction that follows is merciless. Bodies deteriorate, livers collapse, hearts weaken, minds sink into fog and despair. Relationships crumble under the weight of broken promises and repeated betrayals. Families fracture. Futures are stolen. And yet, even then, the grip of addiction does not loosen. Because the grip is not of the substance itself, but of the unhealed wound. That is why the path forward is not about fear. It is not about shame. It is not about punishment. The path forward is about healing. Healing the body, healing the mind, healing the environment, healing the spirit. And healing cannot be forced. It must be chosen. It must be practiced. It must be built, piece by piece, until it grows stronger than the craving itself. Addiction is not destiny. Addiction is not forever. The belief that it must be endured eternally is a myth. When someone discovers a state of being that surpasses the fleeting high of any chemical, when they taste a level of joy, peace, and energy that no drink or drug can match, the illusion of addiction shatters. That discovery does not come overnight. It comes through effort, through patience, through persistence. But when it arrives, it is permanent. The body remembers it. The mind craves it. And unlike the destructive high, this state builds life instead of destroying it. In the coming journey, the steps to that state will become clear. They may involve working with the body in new ways, adopting disciplines that rewire the brain. They may involve confronting and dissolving the pain of the past. They may involve building new social circles where authenticity and joy exist without intoxication. And above all, they may involve cultivating meaning, purpose, and vision so strong that the emptiness is filled not with chemicals, but with passion. The road is long, but it is real. Countless people have walked it. Countless people have risen from the depths of addiction, not just to survive, but to thrive, to live lives fuller and brighter than they ever imagined. Their proof shows one thing: addiction does not have to last forever. And this is only the beginning. Addiction is not simply a habit gone out of control. It is a wildfire that spreads silently at first, then consumes everything in its path. A single drink or dose may look harmless in isolation, but repeated often enough, it reshapes the entire foundation of a life. The body begins to adjust to the substance, then depend on it, then deteriorate under its weight. The mind, once sharp, clouds over. Thoughts that were once clear and confident turn restless and fragile. Relationships, once strong, bend and crack under the strain. And society, in its attempt to combat the problem, often responds with fear and punishment, forgetting that what it is dealing with is not evil, but pain. When entire governments declared war on alcohol, history showed just how misguided that approach was. In the early 20th century, nations across the globe experimented with prohibition. Leaders imagined that if alcohol could be erased from streets, then addiction would disappear with it. But the opposite happened. Where one door closed, 10 more opened. Basements filled with stills, garages with brewing equipment, alleys with backdoor deals. People found ways to drink even more dangerously than before. What was banned in public became a hidden currency in private. Organized crime flourished, violence spread, and the substance itself became more desirable simply because it was forbidden. In America, the so-called dry law produced not sobriety, but syndicates, gangsters, and underground bars that operated in every major city. Prohibition did not kill addiction. It fed it. It glamorized rebellion. It gave rise to an empire of illegal trade so vast that its consequences still echo today. In Europe, the same cycle repeated. In Sweden, early attempts at strict prohibition collapsed under the weight of public resistance. People voted to end the ban because the cost to daily life, culture, and economy was unbearable. In Russia, prohibition was imposed more than once. Each time, instead of stamping out drinking, it bred unrest and chaos. In one dramatic moment during the fall of an empire, crowds stormed palaces not for political conquest, but in search of hidden alcohol, rumored to be locked away in cellars. That single truth, preserved in the writings of revolutionaries themselves, demonstrates the power substances can hold when society misunderstands the problem. These stories are not just history lessons. They are warnings. They show that force cannot erase addiction. Threats cannot heal wounds. Prohibition cannot satisfy the human need that drives people to substances in the first place. At best, such efforts silence the problem temporarily. At worst, they make it stronger. This is why it is so important to recognize that alcohol and drugs are not, in themselves, the real enemy. They are merely the surface expression of a deeper struggle. They are symptoms. They are bandages placed over gaping cuts that never heal because the root cause is ignored. When those roots are not addressed, the pain continues, and people will always find new ways to escape it. Think of a wound left untreated. Flies swarm to it. Infection grows. Covering the wound or swatting away the flies does nothing if the flesh beneath continues to rot. Addiction is the same. You can outlaw the drink, but if the emptiness, trauma, and longing remain, people will reach for something else. Glue, perfume, toxic brews mixed in secret rooms. Anything to silence the ache, if only for a moment. The destruction this causes is not limited to the addict alone. Entire families collapse under its weight. A child grows up watching a parent disintegrate, powerless to help. A spouse watches a partner drift further away, breaking promises with every relapse. Friends drift apart as trust erodes. Workplaces lose employees, communities lose leaders, societies lose innovators and creators. Addiction does not just take lives. It takes potential. It steals futures that might have been filled with brilliance, invention, love, or art. The illusion that addicts are weak, that they are simply careless or reckless, is shattered the moment we look closely. Many of the world's most gifted individuals have carried this burden. Writers, painters, musicians, thinkers, people of extraordinary creativity and vision have fallen to addiction, not because they lacked strength, but because they carried too much weight inside. Their longing for meaning, for connection, for relief from unbearable emotions was too strong. Substances became the only temporary refuge. Yet the same refuge that dulled their pain also destroyed their bodies, their relationships, and sometimes their lives. This is the cruel paradox of addiction. The very thing that feels like salvation in the moment becomes the source of ruin in the long term. It is important to understand the layers of destruction. On a physiological level, substances rewrite the body's chemistry. They flood the brain with chemicals designed to make us feel joy, then leave it drained and empty. Each time the crash is heavier and the craving to repair it more urgent. Over time, the natural ability to feel pleasure diminishes. Without the substance, the world feels gray and lifeless. That is why people return to it, even when they know it will harm them. The body has been taught to believe it cannot function without it. On a psychological level, substances offer masks. A shy individual drinks and suddenly feels bold. A lonely person takes a hit and suddenly feels surrounded by warmth. Someone crushed by self-doubt finds instant confidence. But these are illusions. They are temporary identities created by chemicals. When they fade, the original pain returns, sharper than before, reinforced by guilt and regret. The mask slips, and the face beneath is even more tormented. On a social level, addiction spreads like contagion. One person drinks because the group drinks. One person uses because their circle uses. It becomes the currency of connection, the ritual of belonging. To say no feels like betrayal. To walk away feels like exile. This is why so many who attempt to stop find themselves losing entire networks of friends. In reality, they are not losing true friends. They are losing companions in escapism. But in the moment, the loss feels unbearable. And on the deepest level, addiction feeds on existential emptiness. The question of why am I here is not a trivial one. It is the foundation of every human life. When that question goes unanswered, when meaning is absent, when purpose is obscured, the void it creates is terrifying. Substances rush in to fill that void. They offer quick meaning, not real meaning, but sensation. They give the illusion of purpose through pleasure. They allow someone to say, "I don't know why I exist, but at least I feel good right now." And so the cycle continues. Understanding these layers of destruction reveals the truth. Addiction is not conquered through law, or shame, or punishment. It is conquered through healing. Real healing means building healthier rhythms for the body, reframing the mind, finding environments that nurture rather than destroy, and cultivating a sense of meaning so strong that no substance can compete. The power of this understanding is that it removes blame. To say addiction is weakness is to misjudge. To say addiction is forever is to strip hope away. But to say addiction is a wound is to recognize that wounds can heal. Scars may remain, reminders of the past. But scars are not chains. Scars are proof that the body can repair itself. Scars are symbols of survival. This is why the narrative must shift. Instead of telling people that they will always be prisoners of addiction, society must begin to tell them that freedom exists. Not just the freedom of resisting a drink for another day, but the freedom of no longer needing it. Not the freedom of survival, but the freedom of transformation. This is not false hope. It is reality. It has been lived by countless individuals who have not only escaped addiction, but risen into lives of joy, power, and clarity far greater than anything a substance could ever provide. But the road there requires honesty. It requires courage. It requires acknowledging the destruction without flinching. To look at a body deteriorating, at relationships breaking, at futures being erased, and to say, "This is not destiny. This is a wound, and wounds can heal." The world often paints addiction as the end of a story. In truth, it can be the beginning. It can be the crucible in which strength is forged, clarity is discovered, and purpose is born. Some of the most powerful transformations in human history have come from those who fell deepest into despair, only to rise higher than anyone believed possible. Their journeys are proof that destruction can be turned into renewal, that the ashes of addiction can become the soil of a new life. This is the truth that must be spoken again and again until it replaces the myth of eternal struggle. Addiction does not have to be a life sentence. It can be the starting point of a life beyond imagination. The turning point in any journey through addiction does not come when someone is told they must stop. It does not come when laws are written, when lectures are delivered, or when fear is poured onto them. The true turning point arrives when a person sees, even for a flicker of a moment, that life can feel better than the false high they have been chasing. That vision becomes the spark. And once that spark ignites, transformation begins. Transformation is not a single leap. It is a process of rewiring, rebuilding, and rising. For the body, it means creating rhythms that replace the chemical storm with natural strength. For the mind, it means dissolving patterns of fear and shame and replacing them with resilience and clarity. For the social environment, it means building circles of authenticity and support that make substances unnecessary. And for the spirit of a human being, it means anchoring in purpose so solid that no emptiness can lure them back. The body is the first battlefield. Years of dependency carve deep grooves into the nervous system. Dopamine pathways become hijacked. Energy feels absent without stimulation. Sleep patterns shatter. Hunger and thirst are twisted. To heal, the body must relearn what it once knew: how to generate its own balance, its own vitality, its own joy. Movement becomes medicine. Each breath of clean air, each stretch of muscle, each drop of sweat is a reminder that life itself can be a source of exhilaration. The rush that substances promised is nothing compared to the rush that the body can generate naturally when cared for, trained, and respected. The journey is not instantaneous. It requires days, weeks, sometimes months of persistence. But every step leaves behind residue of poison and builds layers of strength. Alongside the body, the mind must be reshaped. Addiction thrives on shame. Every relapse, every broken promise, every morning of regret piles guilt onto the psyche until the person believes they are worthless. That belief becomes the very fuel that drives them back to the substance. Because when you feel worthless, why resist? Why care? The cycle tightens like a vice. To break it, the narrative inside the mind must change. No one is worthless. Every person carries the potential to rise, no matter how deep they have sunk. The mind must begin to practice new thoughts, to repeat new patterns, to envision new futures. Each time a destructive thought appears, it can be countered with another. Each time shame whispers, it can be answered with strength. Slowly, the inner dialogue changes, and with it, the cravings lose power. Environment is the silent architect of destiny. A person surrounded by others who live only for escape will find it nearly impossible to resist. Every gathering becomes a temptation. Every friendship becomes a trap. But change the environment, and the trajectory shifts. It may begin with one supportive voice, one person who understands, who encourages without judgment. From there, new circles can be built. Circles where authenticity replaces intoxication, where joy is found in creativity, in adventure, in real conversation, in shared purpose. These circles do not demand masks. They do not punish honesty. They allow the person to be themselves fully, without needing a drink or a pill to unlock confidence. And slowly, the old companions lose their pull, not because of rejection, but because the new environment feels more alive, more real, more fulfilling. At the deepest level lies meaning. Without it, even the strongest body and clearest mind eventually falter. Humans are not machines. They do not exist merely to survive. They exist to create, to grow, to contribute, to love, to pursue visions larger than themselves. Addiction thrives where meaning is absent. The void pulls people back again and again. But when meaning is discovered, when purpose is embraced, the void closes. Suddenly, life itself offers a high greater than any chemical. Waking up with passion becomes more exhilarating than waking up with intoxication. Building something that lasts becomes more satisfying than temporary escape. Serving something larger than the self, whether it is a dream, a mission, a community, or a creative pursuit, fills the days with fire and nights with peace. This transformation is not theoretical. It has been lived countless times. People who once believed they were chained forever have risen into lives of energy, clarity, and purpose so profound that they no longer even recognize the person they once were. The drink, the drug, the craving becomes not a temptation, but a memory. Something that belonged to a different life, entirely. They are not fighting every day to resist. They are not counting years of survival. They are living, truly living, without chains. And here lies the most important truth. The state that replaces addiction is not dull. Many fear that giving up substances means giving up excitement, pleasure, or joy. They imagine sobriety as gray, lifeless, monotonous. But in reality, the opposite is true. The state that emerges is more exhilarating, more colorful, more powerful than anything the substance ever offered. because substances only imitate joy. They trick the brain into releasing chemicals in ways it was never designed to. Natural joy, born of purpose, health, and connection, is far deeper. It lasts longer. It leaves no crash behind. It does not demand a price in broken health or broken trust. It builds instead of destroys. This realization is the turning point. The first time someone feels genuine exhilaration without a substance, they glimpse freedom. The first time they laugh without a drink, they glimpse authenticity. The first time they feel strong without a stimulant, they glimpse power. These glimpses grow into days, then weeks, then months. And eventually, the memory of the old life feels foreign. The chains are not only broken, they are forgotten. Still, the journey is not without struggle. Momentum drags. Environments resist change. The body craves what it once knew. The mind clings to old stories. But struggle does not mean failure. Struggle means growth. Every time the body demands the substance and is instead given movement, health grows. Every time the mind whispers shame and is instead answered with strength, resilience grows. Every time the environment tempts and is resisted, confidence grows. And every time the void threatens and is answered with meaning, purpose grows. This is the slow, steady transformation from survival to freedom. What emerges at the end is not just a person who is clean. What emerges is a person who is alive in ways they never imagined. Their body feels strong. Their mind feels clear. Their relationships feel genuine. Their purpose feels undeniable. They do not wake up each day fearing relapse. They wake up each day chasing vision. And in that chase, they discover a high that no bottle or pill could ever replicate. This is the promise of transformation. It does not erase the past. The scars remain, but scars are not chains. Scars are proof. Proof that wounds can heal. Proof that survival can turn into strength. Proof that the story does not end in destruction, but in renewal. This is the truth that must be carried forward. Addiction is not a life sentence. It is a chapter, and it can be closed. A new chapter can begin, one written not in shame and struggle, but in resilience, joy, and purpose. The journey is long, but every step is worth it. For on the other side lies a life brighter than anything substances could ever create. There comes a moment in every transformation when the old chains no longer feel heavy, because they are no longer there. What once seemed permanent is revealed as temporary. What once felt inevitable is revealed as optional. The human being who once believed they were trapped forever realizes that the door to freedom was never locked. It only needed the courage to be opened. That moment is the breakthrough. The breakthrough is not simply living without substances. The breakthrough is living with a fullness so deep that substances no longer make sense. Imagine the difference between a flickering candle in a dark room and the rising sun flooding the horizon. Addiction is the candle. Small, unstable, fragile. True liberation is the sun. Powerful, unstoppable, life-giving. Once the sun rises, the candle loses its meaning. It cannot compete. This higher state is not abstract. It can be measured in every breath, in every heartbeat, in every step taken with strength instead of weakness. The body that once felt exhausted begins to feel alive again. Muscles strengthen, lungs expand, blood flows freely. Sleep becomes restorative instead of restless. The fog that once clouded the brain clears, replaced by sharpness, memory, and focus. Even the smallest experiences, a walk in fresh air, laughter with a friend, the satisfaction of completing a task, feel more vivid, more rewarding, more real. The mind, once shackled by guilt and shame, begins to speak with a new voice. No longer does it whisper, "You are broken." No longer does it echo, "You will fail again." Instead, it declares, "You are strong, you are capable, you are rising." Each thought becomes a building block of confidence. Each belief becomes a foundation of resilience. This is not empty affirmation. It is the truth being rediscovered. The environment, too, changes. Where once there were gatherings centered around intoxication, now there are communities built on authenticity. Connections grow that do not depend on substances. Friendships deepen through honesty, shared goals, real conversations. Bonds form around creativity, around ambition, around dreams. And these bonds last because they are not dependent on escape. They are built on reality. But the deepest transformation of all is purpose. Purpose is the antidote to the void. Purpose fills the emptiness that substances once tried to hide. When purpose takes root, every day has meaning. Waking up is no longer about surviving another cycle. It is about advancing a vision, achieving a goal, contributing to something larger. That sense of direction becomes intoxicating in the best way. It fuels energy. It ignites passion. It silences doubt. This state, this higher state, is the real liberation. It is the freedom people once believed impossible. It is the realization that the so-called high from substances was never truly high at all. It was a shadow, a trick, a brief spark that burned everything around it. The true high is the state of being fully alive, fully present, fully engaged with life. It does not fade in hours. It does not demand destruction as payment. It grows, it strengthens, it sustains. And here is the most powerful truth. This state is available to anyone. It does not require extraordinary talent. It does not require rare luck. It requires a decision, followed by persistence. It requires the courage to step into discomfort, the patience to endure struggle, and the vision to see beyond temporary cravings. Every human being carries within them the capacity to reach it. Some discover it earlier, some discover it later, but all can discover it. Those who arrive at this state often look back at their old life with disbelief. They remember the days when they thought they could not survive without a drink, without a hit, without a smoke. And they realize how false that belief was. They see that the substance was never keeping them alive. It was keeping them from living. The real life was waiting beyond it, brighter and stronger than they ever imagined. The scars of the past remain, but scars are not signs of weakness. They are symbols of survival. Each scar says, "I was wounded, but I healed. I was broken, but I rebuilt. I was chained, but I am free." These scars are badges of strength, reminders of battles fought and victories won. They are proof that transformation is real. And perhaps the greatest gift of reaching this higher state is the ability to inspire others. A person who has walked through the fire of addiction and emerged whole carries a light that can guide others. Their story becomes more than survival. It becomes a message of possibility. It shows that no matter how deep the pit, no matter how long the struggle, freedom is possible. Their presence becomes living proof that healing is not a myth, but a reality anyone can achieve. This is why the narrative around addiction must change. The world must stop telling people they are condemned to eternal struggle. It must stop repeating that recovery is only a fragile balance that could collapse at any moment. Instead, it must begin to tell the truth, that full freedom exists, that it is real, that it has been achieved, and that it can be achieved again and again. People need not survive forever in fear. They can thrive in confidence, in joy, in purpose. The breakthrough is the beginning of that thriving. It is the start of a life defined not by what was lost, but by what can now be built. A life where energy flows freely. A life where meaning guides every choice. A life where joy is not borrowed from a bottle, but created from within. This higher state is not fragile. It does not crumble the moment temptation appears. Once a person truly discovers it, substances no longer hold appeal. Why would they? The false high pales compared to the real one. The illusion cannot compete with the truth. And once the truth is known, it cannot be unknown. Imagine standing at the edge of a storm, soaked, shivering, barely able to see. Then imagine stepping beyond the storm into sunlight, warmth and calm. No one who has felt that sunlight willingly runs back into the storm. They may remember the storm, they may even carry marks from it, but they live in the sunlight now. That is what the breakthrough feels like. Addiction tells people they are weak. The breakthrough proves they are strong. Addiction whispers they will never change. The breakthrough declares they already have. Addiction insists the chains are permanent. The breakthrough shows the chains were illusions all along. And so, to every person who has struggled, who has fallen, who has believed the lie that addiction is forever, hear this. It is not forever. It is not destiny. It is not who you are. You are stronger than the substance. You are greater than the craving. You are capable of a life more powerful, more vibrant, more joyful than you can yet imagine. The path is not easy, but it is real. The struggle is not pleasant, but it is temporary. The freedom is not a dream, but a reality. And the reality is waiting right now for anyone willing to take the steps. This is the promise of transformation. This is the power of resilience. This is the truth of the human spirit. Addiction does not define you. Your ability to rise does. And when you rise, you will discover a state beyond anything you once thought possible. A state so elevated, so fulfilling, so lasting, that no substance will ever hold power over you again. That is the ultimate breakthrough. That is freedom.